Hello and welcome to the YBMB live show. So today I'm on location. I've just come out to visit someone, so I'm just on my phone. So I hope you can see me all right. But I wanted to talk today about mindset, because Wednesday being the mindset day of YBMB. Mondays we talk about body, as you know. Fridays we talk about business, and Wednesdays we talk about mindset. And very often I have a guest to sort of talk things through. I mentioned a number of those guests on Monday for International Women's Day, and I have a great business guest actually on Friday to talk about business, disruption in business. But today I'm going to talk about mindset, and in particular I thought I would run through for you some books, some book recommendations, books that really have I've found to be very, very helpful for growing mindset. When you think about your mindset, it's probably one of the biggest assets that we actually have. Everything is really, excuse me, I can see myself now. Everything is based really on our mindset. You know, the way that we move our body, whether we stay consistent, how resilient and resourceful we are, all starts with mindset, doesn't it? And mindset, it influences us in a number of areas. And what I've learned is that you can cultivate a mindset in different areas. So, for example, you can cultivate a longevity mindset. And that means that you change your perspective on how long you're going to live. So, you know, it's a very popular conception that we're going to live till mid-70s, for example. Sorry, I can hear the dog screaming. 2 seconds. Come if you want. Yeah, it's a popular conception that we are only going to live to our mid-70s. But the truth of the matter is that science is demonstrating now that we should be able to live well beyond 100, and in fact 150 is what the science is saying. So if that's the case, then you know, we ought to prepare for that, but many people don't believe it. So you can cultivate a longevity mindset by reading various books, spending time with people who also think the same, thinking about cutting edge technologies, thinking about the future. And the more that you actually look at the evidence, the more you will believe that you are going to live for, you know, beyond 100. And if you think like that, it takes the panic out of the current time frame. It stops you being in such a hurry that you have to achieve, you know, business targets this year, for example, or, you know, you have to hit some of these other milestones. You have to get a house, or you have to be married, or you have to have children by a certain time. So, so longevity mindset is something to think about cultivating. Another type of mindset that's worth cultivating is a growth mindset, and the belief that, you know, there is, you know, that there is a point in always growing, and that you can always grow, and that, you know, you don't reach a point beyond which your best years are behind you, and it's too late to sort of do anything else, and you may as well just sort of settle with your lot. So you can cultivate a growth mindset. And the third one is an abundance mindset, the belief that there's enough out there for everybody, rather than a scarcity mindset. You know, thinking that even if you go into a saturated business sector, that you know, you can have your own value proposition, and you can actually take a piece of the market, and that there's a sufficient market out there for everybody. And that is an abundance mindset. So, you know, how to cultivate these different mindsets? Well, obviously, like I've said, it's one of the factors is who you spend time with, and, you know, what you discuss, and being on the same page as people that believe the same thing. But another is obviously what you consume. And so this is what I wanted to talk to you about, with some of the books to really help you with these types of mindsets. So I was going to run through, and Sabrina's in the background ready to show some front covers. I've just pulled up the books that I've read in the last 18 months that I often recommend to people, depending on, you know, what they've asked me and the advice they want, and the things that they're thinking about, the challenges they're facing. And without going into too much detail, I'm just going to give you these recommendations. Obviously, I've read more books than this, and there are some that I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I mean, there's so many millions of books to read, isn't there? That, and we, you know, with the best will in the world, even if you listen to them on Audible, that I often do, and even if you do it at double speed, that I often do, still, you know, you're not going to be able to read all the books in the world. And so, you know, if I feel that maybe this book that I've chosen is not going to teach me anything new, then you know, I'm quite happy to sort of stop reading it. So the ones that I'm going to go through are the ones that I've read from start to finish that I really think have got something good to share. So off we go. And they're in no particular order, by the way. Well, they are actually. They're the more latest I'm actually currently reading. So yeah, the order they're in is not an order of preference, but more in order of sort of time frame. And this one I've only just finished. It's called Living Fully, as you can see there. And it really is a summary of Buddhist beliefs. And it's about living in the present. It's about not being afraid of death, understanding that death is inevitable. You know, it's going to happen to absolutely every single one of us. And so with that being said, giving you advice and guidance on how to live in the present and how to try and enjoy every single day, knowing that there are all sorts of influences out there that, you know, sometimes can make us feel bad and not, you know, not good enough and all things like that. But this book, Living Fully, is such an uplifting and lovely book. So I would very much recommend having a look at that, because it's a nice book to read. I like to read it in the morning first thing. In fact, I do like to do my reading in the morning. I like doing a bit of meditation and then I like reading. So I'm going to bring this little puppy up here, and you can say hello to this little person in a minute. But she's sitting quietly on my lap now. So Living Fully is one that I would definitely read. And then the next one is also one that is a real feel-good book. You can see here the boy, the mole, the fox and the horse. It's like a little fairy tale for adults. And it was recommended to me by Alice Theobald, who I actually interviewed on a podcast the other week about on mindset, actually on a Wednesday. And we talked about gratitude. And she recommended this book as a really lovely little coffee table book just to pick up and read a couple of a few pages. It's got beautiful illustrations in it. And it's just the perspective of each of these animals when they go and they meet each other. Unlikely little friends, a horse, a mole, a fox and a boy, and very, very reflective. And they sort of say things that sometimes we think as humans. It's just a sweet little book. So you can have that on the coffee table and flick through. This one, Boundless, is a huge book, actually, a huge amount of content in it. And it's one of those that is a bit more encyclopedic in that, you know, you wouldn't really sit down and read it start to finish. It's more that you will dip in and out depending on the chapters. It's by a guy called Ben Greenfield that I've been following for quite a few years now, watching his podcast. He started off originally as a personal trainer based in the US, and then became a lot more interested in you know, what it says Boundless, but all the things that you can do to basically upgrade your brain, optimize your body, as it says here, and defy aging. And he brings together a lot of science, and he talks a lot about nutrition and the best forms of exercise, and you know, explains how you can actually upgrade your brain, you know, and it's not just a matter of accepting that certain people think a certain way. This is all to do, for example, with our neurotransmitters and the amount of hormone that surges through us, and that you can actually influence the way you think by what you eat, for example. So that's a great book to have, because it's, you know, it's in line with what I was saying about longevity. On that point, I love Dan Sullivan's books. Dan Sullivan, I think he's in his 70s or 80s now, and he writes a book per quarter. And he writes a lot about business, he writes about marketing, but he started to write a lot about lifetime growth and about longevity. And this one is, I think there's another one of his that I'm going to mention in a minute that's in this list. But it's all about how to keep on growing, to always be learning, and to, as I was saying at the beginning, to not ever believe that your best years are behind you. And it's not cheesy at all. It's got some really, really good strategies in it. So that's all I want to say about that book, Sabrine. You can. His books are quite short, actually, because, like I say, they're like top tips, really, and he writes one every quarter. So we can move to the next one. You want to do that, Sabrine, please? Are you there? Okay, this is interesting. My son Stephen actually has a YouTube channel called Bookshelf TV. And he introduced me to this book. So actually on that point, what Stephen does is he gives you a synopsis of a book, and you can listen to it in about 20 minutes. So if you, as I was saying at the beginning, you know, if you're worried that you're not consuming enough books, or there's just too many books to read in a lifetime, you can put that on, you know, on your earphones when you're going for a walk, and you consume the whole content of a book in about 20-minute walk, or quicker if you double speed it. But this is funny, this one, because it does explain different personality types and how different people think, and you can immediately spot in this what their theory is that everybody is primarily one of these: a red, a yellow, a green, or a blue person. And so, for example, red people are very driven. They tend to be sort of leaders. They tend to be, you know, very forthright in their views, etc. And, you know, you've got other types. Blue people are quite dogmatic, quite logical. They like things done properly. It's got some funny parts in it as well, because it talks about exactly how to wind up a person of that, you know, depending on their nature, how you can spot them from their behaviours. And you really, really can spot yourself. But, you know, so it's got quite an amusing side by Thomas Erickson, this is. But it's also very, very useful, so that you can start to understand why you do some of the things that you do, and also why people around you do some of the things that they do as well. It just is a real good insight into human behaviour. This one, the 25-year framework, is another one written by Dan Sullivan, and you know, in keeping with his belief that we're going to be living to 156, he tells us to think about tasks and chapters in our life in terms of 25 years. And so if you think to yourself that you might actually end up living to 150, you've got a lot of chapters. And even when you get to 50, you've only really had 2 of them. You start thinking in 25-year chapters, and you start to think to yourself that maybe, you know, you've got 6 of those, then yeah, it really does take the heat and the pressure out of where you currently are. And then you get a feeling of calm, and you start to maybe enjoy the journey a bit more. So do have a look at that. It's really a great one to read. Oh, this one, The Code. Yeah, this is written by Jocko Willink. Jocko Willink was a Navy SEAL, and you know, one of the very high-ranking Navy SEALs. I really think his books are brilliant, actually. I think I'm going to come on to another one in a minute, because this was the second one of his that I read. Obviously, you know, they were operating in Afghanistan and seen some, you know, some very dangerous situations they've been involved in. And he spells out in very, very simple layman's terms what it is to be disciplined in life, and, you know, how you can identify your values and how you can live by them. He calls it the code. There's a certain series of values that in you know, their I don't know what you call it, regiment or whatever it is, that they all live by, and but really they are fantastic life rules, and he talks about how you implement them, so that's great. Dave Asprey is someone who invented bulletproof coffee, or rather, you know, that's the phrase that he coined for it. So he was somebody who was working in San Francisco in tech, and he was burnt out, and he had put weight on, he couldn't work out why, and all of the rest of it. And he ended up going and spending time up in the Himalayas, I think it was. And he saw some people there making, stirring butter, that's it, yak butter, into coffee. And he realized how energetic that can make you feel because of the fats, the quality of the fats combined with the coffee, and what it does to your brain, and it energizes you, and it enables you to feel satiated. And that really started his health regime. It completely transformed him mentally and physically. And then he went on to become, I suppose, one of the first biohackers. He sort of coined that phrase, as well as Ben Greenfield, I think. So this one is about his 3rd or 4th book. It's called Superhuman by Dave Asprey. And, you know, he's gone further in the biohacking world, and he talks about everything from, you know, the best type of exercise. What do they call it? They call it the minimum period of exercise, something like that. Anyway, you know, the minimum sort of dose of exercise that you need to really have a fit, strong body. He even talks about things like nootropics, and how you can experiment with natural nootropics, which are sort of things like mushrooms, etc., to really heighten your mental capacity. I haven't done it yet, but in the US, a lot of people, they do that. They experiment with nootropics, and he's actually actually manufactured some vitamins, which have got traces of that in. So if you want to have a look at that, something on it, his bulletproof website. This one, Joe Dispenza, the habit of breaking the habit of being yourself. So Joe Dispenza's, an expert in, what can I call it? Well, energy fields and the science behind what we think, and the fact that really, we're just all molecules, the same as everything around us. And he talks about, time as being not really real. You can get on different, you can get in different, what can I call it, energy fields where time is really just a sort of a manufactured thing. And so what he talks about is that the way that we are, the way that we believe we are in terms of our personality is really just remembered stuff. And you can change your personality and your thoughts, and almost by thinking about what you want and imagining that it's happened already, your body responds and believes it. And I suppose the simplest example I can give is, when you sit and watch a film and it's sad and suddenly you find yourself crying, well, that's not real, is it? But your body believes it's real and gives you that same response. If you watch something that's scary, for example, then you feel scared. If you watch something that's happy, you laugh. And what he's saying is that, say, for example, you want to achieve a certain state of physical health. Say, for example, you want to buy a yacht. Say, for example, you want to find the partner of your dreams. He gives you techniques to wake up and believe that that has already happened. And then the body believes it's happened. He's seen it apply itself to people healing themselves of things like cancer. When they've he had an accident, I think it was to do with his back, where he was told that he would be able to walk, and he ended up walking out of hospital within just a few weeks. So this habit of breaking the habit of being yourself is a really interesting book to read, because what he's saying is you can think yourself into achieving anything just by believing it's happened and telling yourself that it's happened already. The Miracle Morning is a lovely book if you are just sort of trying to start out on a new regime. This advises that you basically try and win the day by getting up. You try and win it by getting up well before 8 o'clock. And in fact, he advocates getting up at 5 a.m. This guy, he talks about the fact that it completely transformed his life once he undertook this new habit. So, and he gives you something called savers, which is a little routine to follow in the morning that myself and everybody on the YBMB program does follow now. And I call it, it's part of that, and some other things as well, which I put together and called it the emotional gym. You might have heard me talk about that before. What he says is that if you take this quiet time for yourself, if you get up, if you do a bit of exercise, if you drink some water, some meditation, do some reading and some learning, rewrite your goals, rewrite your thoughts, maybe rewrite your identity that you're trying to create, and then get on with your day, it will have miraculous and transformational impact. And that's my dog snoring there. So the Miracle Morning, I think if you're starting with any of these books, this is a really, really great book to choose. Followed by this one, actually, Atomic Habits is a wonderful book as well by James Clear. And I always recommend this on the YBMB program. When people are starting with us, the first thing that I do is work with them on their nutrition and exercise routine. And I teach them to weight train, as you know, and I teach them an entirely different way of eating, which always astonishes people because it gets such great results, and yet they feel really healthy, energized and full. But once, like anything, us human beings are really driven for variety. And so like anything, after a few weeks of mastering that, even though we get results, for some reason, we are compelled to sort of change, and sometimes we fall off the wagon because of that. So Atomic Habits is a great one because it really teaches you how to embed habits, how to link one thing to the next, and thereby to stay consistent. So I really recommend Atomic Habits. It's a great book. Back to Jocko Willink. Yeah, this was the first one of his books that I read. It's a really powerful title, Discipline Equals Freedom. You wouldn't think so, would you? Because sometimes I think when you get this new regime, you get this new routine, and maybe it involves working out on a daily basis, not eating certain foods, eating more of others, meditating and all that. if you're not, if you don't think about it in the right way, you can start to feel almost like a slave to a routine. And that in itself will make you stop doing it, because, you know, everyone likes the feeling of freedom. But he describes in this book how, in fact, discipline equals freedom, because once you have applied discipline, you then start to get things done, whether that is, you know, tangible things in business, or whether that is to do with your body goals. You know, you stop moaning about these things, you stop wishing about these things, and you literally start making them become a reality. And once you do that, you realize that everything can come from discipline, everything. And, you know, it's good, actually, me even just sort of sitting here thinking about that book makes me want to go back and read it again, because when you are reading things like this, they seep into your mindset and they make you stick to your routine, and then you get great results. You really do. The best results I've ever had myself is when I stick to my routine. And therefore, discipline does equal freedom, because when you get the results that you want, you feel happy, you feel light in your mind, you feel like you can achieve anything. But it all comes strangely from being disciplined. Oh, I've mentioned this already. So this was the first Dan Sullivan book that I read, My Plan for Living to 156. And when I saw the title, you know, it was intriguing. I think I might have heard this guy speaking on Peter Diamandis's podcast, I think it was, to start off with. And I was intrigued, so I thought I'd have a read. And yeah, this is where I first heard about the longevity mindset, because, you know, if you are spending time with everybody else who also believes that we're all going to die, you know, mid-70s, and who also believes that by the time you're 50, really, you know, you've had your best years and you ought to be calming down and leaving it for everybody in their sort of 20s and 30s, then, you know, the same as if you spend all your time with people that are overweight and just want to watch Netflix, or, you know, and don't want to sort of learn anything, you become like the people around you. So he advocates here, you know, thinking about the people you spend time with, thinking about the media that you consume, and then looking at the evidence to suggest that you can live to this type of age, because accidents and illnesses aside, and of course we can never guarantee that that's not going to happen to us, of course we can't, but if you put those to one side, then what you can do is things for your body to make sure that it stays fit and healthy until that age. So what a great book to read, actually. So next, Sabrine, what else have we got? Have you got more in the background there? Yeah, she has. The Big Leap. This is a lovely book. This is by a person called Gay Hendricks, and he talks about the upper limit problem, the ULP, the ULP, upper limit problem. And he talks about the fact that, you know, we can start doing really, really well in our body, or our mindset, or our routine, as I just mentioned, or our business, or our friendships, or our relationship. Everything can be going great. And what happens is you get this little voice that comes in and says, yeah, but it can't be that great. Something's going to go wrong soon. And he calls that the upper limit problem. And it's a form of self-sabotage. And it's how, for some reason, what we do is we keep ourselves held back. You know, we all have in our minds what's the best we could possibly achieve. And this would be based on all the messages that we've had, you know, the subliminal messages that we've had through media and as a child, and what our parents might have inadvertently said to us, and what people might have said to us, teachers and school friends and everything. And so we are constrained by this upper limit problem until we read a book like this and we start to then recognize it. Many of us have the same type of upper limit problem, you know, and it stems from, you know, what's been said to us in the past and experiences we've had when we were very, very young. But once you push through it, and he gives you some sayings, he says things like, you know, if you have a mantra that says, I expand in success, love, and abundance every day, and I inspire others around me to do the same. So every day I expand in success, love, and abundance, and I inspire others around me to do the same. Now, that's one of the mantras. You can see that I've remembered that, because I think it's wonderful. You know, when you try and say that to yourself a few times per day, it brings, I think it centers you, brings you back to what it is you're trying to do. And then you move forward, and that helps combat these upper limit problems. So have a read of that book. It really is a great uplifting book. Why We Sleep is a really informative book. I was talking about longevity and Peter Diamandis earlier, and the fact that I went on a conference, which actually was a virtual conference in the end. I was supposed to go there, but it was held in Beverly Hills. I was looking forward to it, but it had to be run virtually. And actually, I think even just they had a few people there, and some of those went home with COVID, despite all the care and attention. So it was good that it was run virtually. But anyway, they brought all the scientists together, and they said still the number one shortener of life is a lack of sleep. And Matthew Walker really explains it very, very well in this book, Why We Sleep. So have a read of that, because if you're one of these people who says, well, I know I should sleep more, but I just can't because I've got emails to do and this, that, and the other, and and you just sort of just accept that you can't. I think if you read this book, it will make you put all that to one side and just make sure you get your sleep. You have to have a minimum of 7 hours, and why we sleep will explain to you why. The Obstacle is the Way is a lovely book. It's a very, very helpful book by Ryan Holiday. And what he basically explains is that every problem that you get is actually an opportunity and a challenge. He gives tons of examples of this. And I do know someone who they read this when they were, recovering from cancer. And it sort of carried them along and really, really helped them. They read it 3 or 4 times. So when you've got problems in particular, if you've got challenges, if you are in the middle of something that you really can't see a way around, it's really holding you back and making you sad or worrying you, pick this book up, The Obstacle is the Way. And as it says here, the ancient art of turning adversity to advantage. It's hard to believe that some awful things like, the death of a loved one or cancer or something like that could be in any way advantageous. But by reading this book, you can actually try and see the silver lining in everything. It's really worth reading. I love this. It's beside my bed. I read a day of it every single night. I started reading this actually at the beginning of lockdown. I'd had it for a little while before that, but at the beginning of lockdown, I just sort of picked it up and thought, well, I'm going to read this every day. So it was the 23rd of March, wasn't it, when we properly started lockdown? And it has a page for every single day. And it has it says here, 366 meditations on wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living. Fascinating little stories. It sort of quotes the Stoics, and it will give you a sort of a sentence or two from one of them, and then it will, Ryan Holiday actually interprets it to the current world. It's so easy to read. I frequently post some of these on my story, my Instagram and LinkedIn stories, and it's so easy to read. So if you're not a reader, or you think you labelled yourself not a reader, because everyone can be, and I hope that I've inspired you to be, start with picking this book up, The Daily Stoic, and just read that. Great. And I wanted to finish with this book. Some of you may have heard of David Goggins, and I was very inspired by him, and I always am. I just looked at him again on Instagram this morning. He's followed by 3.6 million people, and he follows 0. And this is indicative not of an ego, but of the fact that he is so blinkered. And you read his story. He's in his book. It's called Can't Hurt Me. He started off as in a very abusive situation. His dad beat his mother and beat him as well, to really, to the extreme levels as well. It was terrible history he had. He was overweight, and he just was in sort of dead end jobs really, and had 0 sort of self-respect and self-regard, and just didn't look after himself at all. And then for some reason, he just decided that he was going to try to join the Navy SEALs. Something happened, you can read it. And that prompted him to want to do that. And he didn't pass at first, and then against all odds, he did. And he just talks about being blinkered and going after your goal. And everything for him starts with the body. And this is why I'm so aligned with the way that he believes, because I believe the same as well. If you know anything about YB&B by now, you know that what I teach on that season when people join us is, no matter what you come to me for, and very often it is business, you feel stuck in business or you feel stuck in your career, I will always, first of all, help you to get your body strong, help you to get your mindset strong, and then, and only then, will I tackle your business. And up until that point, can we go back to David Goggins for a second? Up until that point, there she is again. I would, there's no point in me talking to you about business, because business and anything else you're trying to do in terms of things to do is really only 20% strategies, and everything else is to do with mindset. And what I've realized is that your mindset can be helped by reading books, etc., but you've got to have the energy in order to even do the work on your mindset. And how do you get the energy? When you move your body, you fuel your body. This vehicle of ours, this one and only vehicle, which is our body, is the thing to address first and get strong, because that in turn, although you can't see your brain, then helps you get a stronger, fitter brain, just as it does with any of your other muscles. And once your brain is strong, then you can do all these things like read all these books, etc. And then when you have a strong body and mind, that's when you can start to turn your attention to business. But so getting back to David Goggins, follow him on Instagram or read this book in particular, because as he works out, and he works out like a machine. I mean, it is just astonishing to see, but it's so inspiring because it shows you what's possible for the human body. There's nothing unusual about him. If you see him at the beginning of this book, he's overweight, he's slow. You would never look at him and see an athlete that was hiding underneath. And what I would say to you, at least for all of us, that athlete is hiding underneath. All of us have this athlete inside waiting for us, waiting to get out. All of us have this super disciplined, machine inside us waiting to get out. And if you want to take me back to the screen now and off of David Goggins, what I'd say to you is whatever it is you want to achieve in life, whether that is, a new business, a new career, a new impact project, or whatever it is in your life, you can achieve it. It's all in there. And, these books that I've mentioned will enable you to get past that upper limit problem. It will enable you to stop holding yourself back and having any form of victim mentality, no matter what your challenges are. And it will help you to start unlocking that machine that is within you and within all of us, just as David Goggins says in his book. So just to end, if you do follow David Goggins, what you will see is that he has a catchphrase, and I'll use it now. He says, stay hard. So stay hard, do some of this work, and you'll be amazed what will emerge. A butterfly will emerge. It will for anybody, any of you, and no matter where you're starting, no matter how old you are, and no matter what challenges you're going through. So start doing this work, start reading the books, and give me some feedback. And if you would like to hear more of this, then do join Your Body Means Business. We've just started the spring season. We've just had our first week, so you can still jump on. People join even 3 or 4 weeks in, and they still, I bring them up to speed with a one-to-one. You can still then hit the ground running, and you can completely transform your life in just one season. And really, this is going to be the last full season, isn't it, for us, working from home prior to lockdown. And then there'll be all of the usual things that get in the way. Restaurants will be open, there'll be parties, there'll be more meetings. We want to go on holiday. So, how about sort of having that butterfly emerge and being that new, machine in time for when we come out of lockdown? I'd really love that for you. And I can help you if you join us on YBNB. So thanks for listening. That's the end of the live. And I hope you enjoy some of these books.